Okay, is everyone here?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So let us start with today's class. I think if you remember, in the previous class we were discussing about the various gauge systems that we have, and also we discussed about the selection of gauges, which depends upon the cost of construction, volume of traffic, development of area, physical features of the country, and then speed of movement. I think these things were discussed in my previous class. Now we are supposed to go ahead with the next part after requirements of rails. I think these composition of rails are already been discussed with you in my previous videos, and then we discussed about the requirements of rails, wherein I discussed all these points in detail. Thereafter we move towards the discussion on types of rail section. We have basically three popular categories of rail section. The first one which was discussed was about double-headed rail. Second was on bull-headed rails, and then the third one was on flat-footed rails. Okay. So soon after that, we discussed the factors influencing selection of rail section. Okay. So in those factors, I think I had told you that it is dependent on gauge of the track, axle load, spacing of sleepers, spacing of the sleepers, as well as the other fittings and fasteners, speed of train, availability of standard section, and then permissible wear and tear that is going to happen as per standards. So these are the two cross sections that you need to remember. The dimensions are very important for you to remember. And then the difference between the double-headed rail and flat-footed rail were discussed with you with respect to all these 7 itineraries, which includes initial cost, strength, laying and relaying process, alignment and track stability, arrangement at points and crossings, and then inspections required, maintenance costs, etc. Okay. So I might have included very limited number of itineraries here to give the difference between the double-headed rail and flat-footed rail. But in many of the textbooks and reference books, as I had told you, or which has been prescribed, you might have slightly different differences between these two. That I think it depends on which book you are referring to. Okay. Then we had started discussing about the defects in rails. Okay. The first defect that we had started with was about rail corrugation. Now I have already told you what rail corrugation is. If you remember, in the previous class I had shown you the image of how the rail corrugation would look like. So these rail corrugations are minute undulations that you see on the surface of the head of the rail, surface of the head of the rail, and this basically happens because of the steep gradients that we provide along rail section, okay, or along the alignment. So
Excuse me,
these,
sir.
yeah,
The screen share is not enabled, sir. We're not able to see anything.
screen sharing is not enabled.
Like, we're not able to see anything, sir.
How about now?
It's black screens. Yeah, now we're able to see, sir.
Yeah, you could have told me long back. I
I
discussed so
put
many
it in
things
the
with
group chat, sir.
group chat. Where? In
In Zoom meeting right now, sir.
okay, I think I have disabled it. I think I have disabled it. So whenever there is such thing, you please unmute yourself and let me know. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in case if there's any such problem, you need to unmute yourself and tell me clearly about what problem you are facing. Okay. Let us not waste our time unnecessarily. Fine. So as I told you, these were the differences. that you can find it in the textbook also. And then we had in the last class started with the defects in rails. Okay, so when I talk about defects in rails, I told you that there are lot of differences between defects, failures, and then wear and tear in rail section. Okay, so you need to be careful while you're writing your answer, because normally I have seen students getting confused and they write wrong answers when the question is being asked. Like for example, if I have asked, explain the defects in rails, by listing the defects first and explaining any 2 or 3 in detail. So when I ask this, normally students, what they do is they mistake it with wear and tear of rail and they write the answers for that. That shouldn't happen. Okay, so the defects in rails, the first one, as I told you, we had discussed about rail corrugation. So rail corrugations, as it has been already explained to you, that these are the minute undulations that you see along the head of the rail or the top surface of the head of the rail because of steep gradients. There are many reasons because of which this defect can take place, but normally steep gradients are the main cause of these defects to take place. Okay, so when the vehicle accelerates suddenly or brakes suddenly in ascending gradient or descending gradient, you see these kind of rail corrugations. So these causes can be listed into 10 different types. Rail corrugation can take place because of yielding formation, it can be because of soft ballast formation, or it can be because of sudden application of brakes, presence of humidity. Now this presence of humidity is normally prominent in places where you have tunnels. So I suppose you have traveled in train, and you might have come across such situations where the trains will be moving into tunnel. Okay, so tunnels, you don't have direct supply of sunlight. So these these rails, they are not normally exposed to sunlight as the other sections of the railway track. Okay, so just because of this, the humidity in the tunnel increases, and this again might be a cause of rail corrugations. Okay, the other type might be the other reason or cause of rail corrugation might be high speed. It might be because of improper coning of wheels. If the coning of wheel is not being properly designed, and if it is not being properly maintained, then improper coning of wheels also can cause such rail corrugations. Then alongside, you have rigidity of track also to be a cause of rail corrugation. Then steep gradients, as I said, it might be a ascending gradient or a descending gradient. And then also because of use of heavy wagons, if the vehicles are overloaded, then corrugations might take place on the rail section. Then lastly, the non-uniformity of the engine wheel diameter might also be a cause of this particular defect. Just like how the tires of a vehicle gets worn out after certain period of time. Okay, we all use motor vehicles, right? We use two-wheelers, we use four-wheelers. I don't think the tire would be the same after 40,000 kilometers of running, isn't it? So as and when the vehicle runs on the road, okay, the wearing of the tires takes place. So the diameter will obviously get reduced. Similarly, even if the wheels of the train are metallic, they are expected to worn out over a period of time. Okay, so when they get worn out, the difference in the diameter, say the left wheel is new and the right wheel is old, so obviously there would be a difference in the diameter. So whenever you have non-uniform diameter of the engine wheels, which is responsible to propel the vehicle in the forward direction or backward direction, okay, so it is normally seen that the wearing of rail will take place, and this might be a cause of rail corrugation. The next defect or the second category of defect is corrosion of rails. Now I suppose you already know the meaning of what corrosion is. So corrosion is basically the disintegration of material that we see in the presence of corrosive materials in the atmosphere. Normally any material, it might be a metallic component or a plastic component or a wooden component, any component, unless and until it is being stored in a vacuum condition, okay, it is bound to get deteriorated over time. Okay, irrespective of what material it is. I think even you have experienced this. When any material is exposed to the open atmosphere, there will be corrosive agents in the atmosphere, right? There are different forms of gases, there are different forms of solid material or particles into it. There might be change in temperature, humidity. So all these factors, atmospheric factors, are responsible for the corrosion of any material that is exposed to the atmosphere. So likewise, what we are interested here is about the rails. So rails being metallic in nature, which is formed by or which is manufactured by different minerals being put together, they are bound to react with the atmospheric compounds, okay, or atmospheric factors. When these atmospheric factors, they interact with the minerals that are present in the rail, the process of corrosion starts taking place. Okay, now this corrosion is actually not bad. Okay, let me tell you that corrosion is not bad. It's like even if the material is a non-living thing, the nature has framed the atmosphere in such a way that even if it is a non-living thing, it tries to protect itself from these disintegrations. Okay, so as I told you, corrosion is the process of disintegration of the material. Now to prevent this disintegration, even if it is a non-living thing, that is, rail is a non-living thing, isn't it? We have minerals in it, they are bound to corrode. Even then, it tries to protect itself by creating a protective layer around it. The brownish yellow compound that you see on any metal, okay, is actually a protective layer which sees to it that the topmost layer, if it gets corroded, the lowermost layers or the lower layers, they don't get affected by this corrosion. Okay, so normally on iron, you might have seen that if you just leave it open to the atmosphere, after a certain period of time, if it is not being coated properly, it will start developing a thin layer or powdery layer on the surface. It's a protective layer that it tries to develop on the surface so as to protect the inner portion of the metal. Okay, so if this protection is tried to be removed, okay, if you try to remove it, then the new layer gets exposed to the atmosphere, and then again that gets oxidized by the atmospheric oxygen, moisture, etc. And this is how the cycle goes on. Okay, so when the trains move on these kind of sections, the protective layer gets removed, and then it gets again exposed to the corrosion, and the corrosion happens. Now when this corrosion happens over a period of time, the disintegration of the material would again cause a loss of material, and that's how the rail will start losing its capacity. Okay, it starts losing its actual dimension that is expected to be as per the standards, right? So this corrosion is one of the biggest problem that we see in railways. So to prevent these what can I say, corrosion process, normally the rails, when they are manufactured, they will be using some special alloys, or it would be given a coating of non-corrosive paint, and then it will be laid at the site. Okay, so just because that you don't want to lose the effective area or the effective resisting area over a period of time, you don't want this corrosion to take place. Normally corrosion is very prominent in places where there is more humidity. Okay, it might be in coastal regions, or it might also be in tunnels. Okay, so this corrosion, since you don't want this to happen, okay, we normally provide a protective coating during the manufacturing process itself, and after certain period of time, during the maintenance process, after laying the rails on the track, these maintenance engineers, they will be again spraying the or sprinkling the non-corrosive coating on the rails. Okay, so that is about corrosion. So if you would want to see how the corrosion would look like, I would just show you. See, if the corrosion is not been treated properly, I think this would be the situation. All these yellow spots that you can see, this is corrosion. Okay, and if this layer is being removed, the new layer gets exposed and even that gets corroded, and then if even that is removed, then the next layer gets corroded, and so on, and finally the metal gets eaten up like this. So you don't want this to happen. That's the reason normally during the manufacturing process they give a corrosive coating. Again, see, this is how the corrosion will cause problems. Now, if you use these kind of rails along the railway track, there might be chances of severe accidents that might take place. Okay, so you don't want those kind of accidents to take place, and hence you need to maintain the rails properly. Okay, so the first defect that we studied was what? It was rail corrugation. The second type of defect, prominent defect, there might be many defects, but only few are being listed. Okay, because few are very prominently seen in most of the places. So this is about corrosion of rail. Next is the third defect. What we need to study is about hogging of rail. So I'll show you how the hogging of rail would look like. See, this is how it would be. So if you have a straight rail section like this, when the rail dips itself down or lifts itself up because of certain irregularities in the design or maintenance, then that process is called as hogging. Now this particular image which I am showing is hogging that is taking place at a joint. So this is a joint, okay, where two standard rail sections meet with each other and they are joined together with the help of joining fixtures. Okay, so if you try to look at the real image, this is how the hogging of the rail would look like. Okay, so did you understand what hogging would look like? What does it mean? Yes, someone need to answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you have understood what hogging is, let us go to the technicality of it, of why we need to study about this. So normally the battering action of the wheels, especially at the ends of the rail, causes this defect. So as I showed you here in this image, when these two rails are newly been laid, this point and this point of the rails will be at the same level, that is this level. Okay, over a period of time, because of a weaker joint section, when the wheel moves on this rail, it starts battering these ends or edges of the rails. Okay, battering means hammering. Okay, so when the vehicle is moving at a very high speed, say 80 kilometers per hour or 120 kilometers per hour, the metallic wheels, they start banging on these corners of the rail. Okay, and that banging process is called as battering action. Okay, so as in when the vehicle moves on such section where these two rails are not being maintained at a proper level as expected by the designs, then this battering action will cause the hogging. Okay, it will cause the hogging process. So this battering action of the wheel over the ends of the rail are the main cause of this particular defect. The second cause might be because of loose packing under the weak joints. What it means is, suppose you have this kind of a situation, all these sleepers that you are seeing will be packed inside the ballast cushion, and if the ballast cushion is very weak, especially in this particular section, okay, the joint will start sinking repeatedly when the vehicle moves over this rail. Okay, so that sinking and again regaining of its position will make the what can I say, will make the rails hog in the downward direction. Okay, now the preventive measure here is, once the rail bends at the ends, you have two ways. Either you rectify the bend that has taken place, okay, or deflection that has taken place in the rail at the site itself, or the other alternative is, if it has increased its what can I say, the strain, then you'll have to just cut the ends, pull the two rails together again and then join them. Okay, so there are a lot of machineries that are being used these days, advanced machineries, wherein the ends of the rails would be heated. These ends would be heated by furnaces, that is in situ furnaces. Okay, and then dehogging machineries are available, which will again regain its shape. It will be allowed to cool, and once it is standard, it will be fixed and rectified. That's how the process would be. So that is about hogging of rails. Now the fourth defect that we have here is what we call as the buckling of rails. Okay, now buckling, again I'll show you how it would look like. Okay, now you can just pay closer attention to this. Can you see this joint? Can everyone see this image?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is, say, rail A, and the other section is rail B. Rail A is joined with rail B with the help of these fish plates. Can you see this plate? So that plate will be on the either side, on the inner side as well as on the outer side. Okay, so just behind this, okay, you will find one more plate, and those two plates are called as fish plates, and these bolts that you can see are called as fish bolts, and the holes that are driven at the ends of these rails to drive these bolts within are called as fish holes. Okay, normally when two such rails are to be joined with each other with the help of fish joint system, you need to provide certain gap between rail A and rail B. The reason why we need to provide this gap is to allow expansion and contraction. Now this rail is made out of metal, okay, and metal, as you already know, that no matter if it is a metal or whatever material it is made out of, every material will expand or contract with the change in the season, right? It might be because of the seasonal variation, or because of the temperature variation, or it might also be because of the humidity variation. So all these environmental variations are responsible for the metal or any substance to expand and contract. Now we are talking about a metallic component here. So metals are very prominently seen to expand and contract when there is seasonal changes. So you need to provide some gap between these two rails such that they freely expand and contract. Now, if this gap is not being provided properly, if the gap is too less, the whole rail, which will be very heavy, will try to expand. And if it is not having space to expand, normally there will be cracks developed here. Or the other way is, see, some way or the other, when the material is stressed a lot, it tries to release the stress through some particular loophole. Okay, it has to release the stress somehow. So these metals have one way to release the stresses in the form of cracks, or the other way is to push each other. Okay, this rail will push this rail, and finally, since both are expanding, they will not be having any space and they both will buckle up. Okay, it will just lift up. So this particular section will get lifted. So when the when this particular joint gets lifted up, when the vehicles are moving at a very high speed, and if this particular buckling is not taken care of, accidents might happen like this. Okay, so you can see it's an article which says that report finds train derailed near such and such place after track buckled. Okay, so track buckling has caused this kind of an accident. So there are many such accidents which have taken place even in India, where because of buckling of rail, the vehicle gets derailed. It's like you are moving at a very high speed, say 120 kilometers per hour or 140 kilometers per hour. When you are moving at such a high speed, what will happen is, imagine yourself, you are moving at such high speed on a highway, and all of a sudden you get a road hump or a speed breaker. The vehicle just jumps up and then it again lands on the road. If you land properly, you are safe, or it would be a disaster. Okay, on similar grounds, such a heavy vehicle, when it moves on a railway track, and if this buckled section comes across, the whole vehicle gets lifted and it gets derailed. Okay, so this defect is basically mainly responsible for the derailment of most of the trains that we see. It's see, whenever train accident happen, it's a huge loss. There will be loss of money, there will be loss of lot of lives. Okay, so you cannot take risk in such cases. So as a prevention, what you can do is, you need to have a frequent check of these joints. Joints must be properly designed. The fish plates, fish bolts, etc. must be properly maintained. And then a close look at these joints are very important. Okay, so if the joints are not maintained properly, then it is going to cause a lot of problem, especially the spacing between the rails. Okay, so the space between the fish plates and rail must be lubricated very frequently, because even when the fish bolts are over tightened, okay, and if the what can I say, the rails are not allowed to expand and contract freely because of the friction. Okay, if it is not being lubricated properly because of friction, if it is not allowed to expand and contract freely, then the buckling might also take place. Okay, so the main concept that you need to remember is, you need to provide an adequate expansion joint. Okay, so that is what you need to keep in your mind. So in case if, nowadays you might have seen that most of these rails would be welded. Okay, like how we provide these what can I say, the joints, like how we saw here. Okay, you might think that why provide these joints when you say that it is the weakest section in railways. Joints are considered as the weakest section in railway tracks. So when you say that this is a weaker part, a question might arise in your head, that why provide these when we have provisions of welding them. Okay, so it might not be possible for you to weld all the rails together for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, because you need to provide some space at some particular section for the metal to expand and contract. So to allow the expansion and contraction, we have to provide fish joints. Okay, there's no other go, right? So you might weld some 2 to 3 rails together as per standards, and then after that you have to provide this kind of a joint, fish joint, okay, to allow the expansion and contraction to take place. So if the welded rails are used, then the steel sleepers must be provided, and you should have a proper anchorage system which allows the mobility of these rails to expand and contract, okay, only within certain limits. So this is about defects in rails. So we studied about rail corrugation, then we discussed about corrosion of rails, and then hogging of rails, and then buckling of rails. So if this question is asked in the examination, you need to first discuss about what it is about. You can show a line sketch after that of how it would look like. Then you should discuss about the causes, and then finally you should discuss about the remedial measures. So these are the things that are expected by an examiner when the correction is being done. Okay, so you need to refer to the textbook also for this, for further things. I think the time is already up. Any doubts as of now?
No, sir.
Was this clear to you, the class?
Yes, sir.
Looks like people are sleeping and yawning and saying yes.
Clear, sir.
Huh?
Clear, sir.
Clear, is it? Okay. So do not neglect about what is being taught here. Once it is being taught, it is your job to open the textbook and study the things in detail. Okay. So I think I'll stop my class here and I'll continue in the next class. Okay.